Hi, my name is Fyodor, and I'm joined by my co-host Joel. Today we are speaking about social isolation. We will have a group discussion to understand how this issue affects a variety of people coming from all walks of life.
Hi, my name is Joel, and Fedor and I met at the Disability Channel for the 14-week internship program. Fedor and I show a passion for helping people with disabilities and mental health issues. We both have experience with a disability, so we thought that it would be a good idea to talk about this topic. And after our discussions with the group, we can take their feedback and help not only ourselves but others as well. Both of us hope that talking about social isolation will help the listeners understand the complexities of this issue that affects a variety of people. Welcome everybody. Well,
Sorry,
Andrew, Nan, Denzil. I will start off with Andrew if he wants to start. How do you personally deal with isolation on a day-to-day basis?
Isolation on a day-to-day basis, I feel it's
lean forward. Always
Oh,
like
sorry.
just sit forward so that you're able to start again.
isolation on a day-to-day basis. I try and make sure that I make social contact with others, visit the library, take a walk, make sure you're surrounded by others so that you're not isolated all the time.
And how do you, Nan?
How do I deal with social
Yes, how do you deal with
isolation?
this?
Well, in many different ways. I'm very conscious of the surroundings which I live at, and I have to, or I'm aware of there's a lot of different people there, and I have to, I don't know if the right terminology, mitigate where I'm going that morning. I know, for example, I was going today to make sure that my goal is to get down and have a breakfast. So I'm making contact with staff, even if I don't want to. I have to get through the maze, if you will. I also check in at the computer because people contact me and send me emails, and I'll see like who tried to contact me. Is there someone I want to contact today or later? Like that. My daughter, who's in California, we have an ongoing, a very long conversation since birth. So I check in to see if she has responded to an email I sent. So that's sort of like the types of things I'm doing. And also future planning, for example, Brands for Canada. In terms of the isolation, I use my mind to think that how can these people work with me to fulfill my goals? That's how I deal with isolation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And Denzil, how do you handle isolation on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, you haven't spent some time going out, like to like shopping malls and in libraries.
Do you find that that's helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are you uncomfortable at family gatherings, and how does it affect you?
I don't have any family here. So you said you made people that live in Canada, gatherings, okay? So in that respect, I'm part of we're all connected in a sense. I could have friends here that become my family. Well, there are different holidays, quote unquote, for example, and there are people of different faiths there, for example. And they may have, for example, if it's Christmas time or Easter, or if it's Passover or whatever, there are other residents, so you're kind of conscious that there are people that's very important to them in terms of this big group of 140 people. And other people just want to spend time in their own rooms and just relax and do whatever they want to do, their faith, whether it's Easter, Passover, or whatever, if they're agnostic, etc. So you have all different kinds of people. I'm there, but I think I'm very, my faith is very important to me. So I think it's a daily basis thing. It's 24/7.
Thank you, Nan.
Does anybody find it difficult to speak at social gatherings.
Well, that's an interesting comment because there's all different types of social gatherings. And depending on not only maybe how I'm feeling that particular day, it's also how I perceive, is this a gathering that I really want to become intimate in terms of talking very deeply with someone. So I guess on some level, maybe subconsciously planning in advance or during how I get involved or don't get involved.
Sometimes, I guess, when you're meeting new people, you don't know whether you should approach them or not during a social gathering, and what to talk to them about is always an issue. So you want to be polite if you're going to talk to them, but you don't know. They might not be like from the same background or have the same interests, so that's an idea that you don't always know.
That's very interesting. I do the exact same thing when I go to a gathering. Like to a social gathering, I went to one just recently, and it made me feel a little bit nervous. When I say social gathering, I sort of went for a interview. I have the same experiences as you, Andrew. I went to volunteer at St. Felix, and I wasn't sure if I would be capable of doing what I was going to do with meeting the new people there and so forth, and responsibilities and so forth. But it turned out a little bit better than I thought.
I could also relate to social gatherings, and then you would just try to break the ice with as many people as possible so that you could ease the atmosphere. How do you motivate yourself to speak in a crowd? So normally what I would do to motivate myself to speak in a crowd is I'd try to just blend in with the crowd, and then slowly become an individual out of it. Just since in high school, I guess I would have an example for that where on the very first day of school, right? You don't know who you're going to meet and what social groups would you be in, right? Until 2 or 3 days or a week after, and then suddenly you would just find yourself in your own group, which becomes your family over time.
Yeah, I'm like you, Fedor. I handle it a little bit differently. Of course, through school and other things, in crowds, I've had certain problems because when I was younger, I was shy. And I didn't necessarily want to go and talk to the person that was there that I need to speak to, because as soon as I got in, my stomach would tighten up, and I would feel really warm and very agitated to a certain degree, and I would just have to just go and meet them and introduce myself, even if I spoke quietly.
Anybody else on what motivates you to speak in crowds?
My God and faith motivates me to speak in crowds. It gives me the confidence to move forward and do that, because it's not all about my ego, so that I'm getting it out of the way from the get-go, so it makes it come easier.
Okay, but do you have any hobbies as well?
Do I have hobbies?
Do you have any hobbies that you do to help you, meditate or motivate yourself?
Well, I said it, I'm a bookaholic.
Mm-hmm.
I've been that my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I've always kept busy. Been in my own company many times in my life because I always wanted to learn more, and even doing research on my own keeps me busy. A very good hobby, if we want to call it a hobby, whether it's research on the internet or it's research talking to people or trying to connect with people once I have an idea that I want to follow through on. I don't know if I'm on the right topic here in answering the question, but yes, I do have hobbies, and I have passions, and my passions are connected to my hobbies. Running a karaoke group, well, I went as originally just with a friend, just to experience it. I was scared to death doing karaoke. The thought of singing with people, let alone in front of people, it was like, I thought I could not do it. And I ended up not only doing this, and I ended up socializing with people that I wouldn't normally socialize with, which is very significant, like how we sometimes typecast people, like these people are that, so they must only be a that. You know, do you know what I'm saying? Biases or jumping to conclusions. And it doesn't mean I would normally choose to hang out with these people forever, but they liked me, and it was a very good experience, and I wasn't totally shamed. After I went public with the first song, I wasn't in total shame, because I was really scared to do karaoke. You have no idea. It also was really challenged for me with MS, going out in front of, I think I was the only person there that used like a walker. And I always, thought, well, I can't, these people are younger, or they're this or that. I have a walker. Can I go out and join the group and then sing? Isn't it a little over the top for me to try to do as something different? And it wasn't. But with that, I will say, I'm very conscious of my safety. And sometimes I get stressed out about it. Not because people are mean. People don't mean to be mean, because people are trying to help, that care about me or even care about others, is that people sometimes don't understand about what that person's disability has and what it is for them to be able to manage to get through life. And that's because that's a very important thing, I think, in terms of working with being there are so many people with disabilities, is that in our attempts to be well-meaning, there's no such thing as 100% perfection. I'll say right off the bat, even if you're the kindest person in the world, there's not 100% perfection in terms of aiding that person.
Do you find drop-ins helpful?
I think drop-ins are good because they're not so structured, and there's not pressure on you to meet dead timelines, and if the transit's not great. So I think drop-ins are easy to come and go when you like, and you can meet new friends there and talk to others. So I think drop-ins are a good way to meet others and help break down social barriers.
I go to drop-ins sometimes.
How hard is it to cope with your surroundings when difficulties come up? Anybody?
I find that it's hard to cope sometimes, because I have sometimes I have a whole bunch of things on the go. Sometimes I have a deadline for some of them. I feel as though I cannot fulfill them, and it kind of gives me a really bad feeling. It's hard to describe, but because I always promise people I'm going to do something, and I believe in keeping my word to the best of my ability, but I can't, like Nan said earlier on, I'm not 100% perfect, and I know that. But once I get it done, I feel a lot better.
I find that like stressful situations with my surroundings, I would tend to listen a lot, since it's easier for information to get absorbed. But occasionally when like stresses would come up, I would just try to focus on the now instead of past events, I guess.
Thank you very much. Do you ever get stressed out or have anxiety during the day? Like, for example, like what causes it, or and how do you deal with it?
Oh, I can feel stressed out about getting to places at a certain time. Particularly, I don't drive anymore, and even if I did drive, given the way this world is with transportation, that in itself stresses me out. That's one example. You mentioned like obligations to others, having commitments to others, wanting to come through for and with them. Also dealing with the here and now versus one day at a time. That's what I have to do, and I remind myself all the time, because I'm a typical type A personality. I've been my entire life, with or without MS, and I really have to realize that I'm not trying to give a sermon here, but when I became born again it changed my whole life. And by that, I mean that when I gave up feeling that I had to come up with all the answers, and if I didn't, it was because I was too weak, or I wasn't good enough, smart enough, or whatever. I'm just not trying to be facetious. It made a tremendous difference in my life and the way I live my life. In regard to the question and the anxieties, I read the Bible. I go to the Bible every day, every night. I ask questions. I look for answers because it's all there. And I will generally tell you up front that if I picked up a Bible, it didn't make any sense to me. I mean, it didn't, because the meaning of the word is all God already had a plan for us even before we were born. And especially when you think about not only if you become a parent, that when you think this whole responsibility, that I found out that God loves me, and no matter what has happened, and everybody has, certain things have happened in their life that are sad, happy, whatever, that they're carrying around in their heart. And it made even how I conduct like therapy with clients, it radically changed how I do my work. And if I'm talking too much, the answer, I guess I am, because I'm a deep thinker. I just am.
Denzil, how do you handle your stress and your anxiety? And what causes it?
What causes it is, I guess, worrying a lot causes it, especially if it's situations that are out of my control.
Do you find it hard to manage?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm like that at times, managing my stress and my anxiety as well. Is there anybody else that has that feeling?
I guess I could also have I could relate to things. I'd like be an example for today, since I have like an audition and I'm focusing a lot on my lines ahead of the day, so I'm already kind of zoned out with my own thinking. So I guess I'm a living example. Do you find it hard to speak to coworkers or employers when at work, like in previous work settings that you guys have been? Was it difficult to reach out to an employer if you guys were like stressed out?
Yes, one of the workplaces I worked at for many number of years. When I first went to work there, I didn't know anybody, and it was very I was very nervous, nerve breaking, whatever. Because I would ask nobody would want to answer your questions. Everyone seemed to be not against each other, but there was a lot of people who didn't like one another at the time. So it was a very difficult place to work until they made some changes. But still, even after years, I've always had problems when it came to changes. I'm writing down all of my orders, like from the customers, then to the computer.
So it would be kind of difficult to like speak out to employers, I guess, is what you're trying to say. Yeah.
At times, but I never had any issues speaking with the clients, on the customers on the phone. That was part of one of my jobs, is to do reception as well, speak on the phones and take orders.
Anybody else?
Can I ask you a question, Joel?
Sure.
Were you, in a sense, saying that taking customer orders was easy and pleasant as compared to dealing with, e.g., co-workers or staff, like managers?
Yes, because I was talking on the phone. I mean, I was talking to other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was talking on the phone because I didn't have to talk to any of my coworkers, and I didn't mind asking questions. But some of my coworkers, they weren't very helpful, because they had their days, because they had mental health issues. So they had their days where it was difficult. Like they were in bad moods and so forth, and they didn't like being around anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So it was better sometimes just to stay out of their way. Because and also I really didn't need the abuse, and I really didn't need it when it was like really busy during the day.
I guess sometimes in some workplaces people are at different levels or different titles, and therefore some people think that they're more important, their job is more important, so you don't spend time to help you doing yours, and so different groups form, so it can be not the best because different people get along, and then others don't talk to you. So when you're trying to work together, not too many personalities can be difficult to manage all at one, I find, and that's what I would say.
How was mental health awareness dealt in education when you guys were like in like high school or university or college? I'm looking for any answers.
How was it dealt with? In many different ways. How much the parents could afford to pay was a big factor of whether someone maybe went for mental health support. That's one thing that could have happened. Also, being different ages along the path, I had different responses to my own mental well-being at 20 versus that I'm older. I think it varied. Also, if it related to like the schools itself, because I'm very, very educated. What do I think about it? Do I think that everything I got in the education was necessarily something I use? No, not necessarily. And it was also getting a degree to be able to do what I wanted to do, which is a whole other, you could have a discussion about that. But relating to specifically mental health, I feel very passionate about it. Not only for myself, but for everybody. Because every person, whether they're a child or a grandmother or a grandfather or they have a relative that at some time has struggled in pain with a mental health issue. And I think that because I come from the professional world, I've sometimes gotten frustrated with people with titles, quote unquote, sometimes doctors, MSWs even, which I am, disappointed in some of the responses people have had to situations. And in that I'll say that when people are part of a system, it's just almost like to become an advocate takes a lot of courage to step out of the box. And sometimes you have to make the choice, well, do I want to put food on my kid's table tonight? Well, maybe I should keep my mouth shut. I'm not going into a huge detail, but I feel I love young people. I always have, even before I had my own young person. And in terms of the work that I've done and do with people, is that in terms of mental health, that no one had a perfect childhood, whether they were rich or poor. Start out with that. And probably, ideally, we would say that we all had two wonderful parents. And the reality is 99% of us did not. And not because they were bad, because they grew up and had a history with their own parents who thought they were doing the right thing.
They have like IEP programs, because like when I was going through like high school, they put me in like an IEP program, which sort of helped with like my own education and then an entirely new path.
You're talking about an intervention that someone identified that would help you because you had some kind of obstacles. Is that correct? Sort of? Sure, people were struggling. They were definitely struggling. But some people at that time were into the flower power time and utilized medication or whatever to deal with their mental health obstacles. And then in school itself, many of us, like I've gone to many different schools where I mean undergrad, where I started and versus where I ended up. And being that I started off at a place called Goddard College, which is in Vermont, which was, I thought it was the coolest thing to be able to go there. There was no grades, and that sounded like whoa. And you could design your own curriculum. And I thought, you got to get mom and dad, you got to let me go there. And then I heard about people that were the professors there, and I thought it was going to be the best thing and everything like that. But in reality, it was not the place for me, and it's still there. And it was not. I needed more structure, to be quite honest. I don't know how they really formally did discussing. Maybe among the students might, say to a friend, I'm feeling really depressed or wiped out or I'm bored or whatever. And I'm sure they had professors there that, did some kind of curriculum to identify it. Sure.
Has social isolation affected any type of relationship you had?
Being socially isolated from certain groups, yes, I had that. I was always the social outcast, the one that stands out from a crowd, the black sheep, the middle child. I don't know, I would find myself, like, it would be very hard to distinguish my own solitude with isolation, and at times it would just, like, shift from, like, people don't want to feel alone. We at times want to be out alone with ourselves, but we don't want to feel alone in a group. And that essentially, like in my experience in like in high school, or even like elementary school, it goes to the point where it was just like, oh, I guess you get used to your own solitude, especially in this day and age where we're surrounded by technology.
It's affected me in my relationship with my marriage years ago. But I mean, my wife and I worked it out, but it was difficult at times because I didn't like to keep on telling her she wanted to go this place and that place, and I didn't want to do anything. So she found that kind of offensive. I mean, not offensive, but she was bothered about that until I actually explained why I do things, and then she sort of understood a little bit. But still, I didn't want to disappoint her. How I overcame that is I just had to move forward and focus on issues like going to family gatherings. I always dread going to her family because her family gatherings, she was Italian and I didn't feel as though I fit in to the crowd. I had a lot of issues with the language barrier as well too, because sometimes I would be the only one speaking English there, and they would all be speaking Italian, and I would be wondering if they would be, talking about me or assuming things or not liking me because I wasn't Italian, because it's part of their culture.
I've had an experience similar to that too, many a times, but I'd rather not discuss since there were a lot of events of those, I guess. Have you ever experienced any feedback from anyone close to you that makes you reconsider how you deal with social isolation?
I've had experiences where I had feedback from people saying that I should be a little bit more social. They didn't call me, but they said I was sort of antisocial. And even though I explained to them that I felt a little bit uncomfortable around some of their settings because some of the people I used Max for the very first time, it sort of makes me look at how how I approach things back then in the present when I was younger, and now I still have issues, but I can speak a little bit more better in a crowd of people.
So the older you got, the more feedback you received.
Yes.
Anybody else?
I guess maybe in a workplace, people think you should talk more. Communication is always important.
Somebody said it to you?
Sometimes you're nervous with just different people in the crowd, so it happens. The older you get, I think the more confidence you get.
Yeah.
In speaking in public.
They think they said that I should speak more.
So, was it from friends or family? That
Both.
Both? Okay, that's good. Or even at work too? Or did you work on it? And did it help with basically the older you got, the more confidence you gained?
Yeah.
It's interesting. The research says that a lot of people, the older they get, the more self-confident they get and being more vocal about their opinions. You would think it would be the opposite. Well, that's an interesting thing because one here, if you pick up a magazine, it's not only women, it's men too. It's there's articles, there's photographs, there's advertisement of how to be better, thinner, smarter, all these things that you're not good enough. On the other hand, the research shows that a lot of people are trying to get better, thinking, well, I got to become a size 7 by next Friday, and if I do these push-ups and whatever. At the same time, a lot of women in particular are saying, no, my body says at this age I can't. I never could, and I never would, and I don't. There's other things that are more important to me than my waistline.
How can the post-secondary environment, I need your guys' thought. I'm really actually curious, but how do you see, over the next 10 or so years, the mental health landscape becoming more and more aware? Institutions like universities and colleges, how do you guys see it gradually change over time?
I haven't set foot in a college in about 25 years or so, but it was but how I see it, it's a very demanding issue right now because it's going to become one of the biggest issues I think in the future, and it already is already, and people are starting to focus on mental health issues, and which is really good. But they need to do a little bit more better at concentrating on it, because like Liz mentioned, there was suicides. Even you mentioned there was a suicide at U of T recently.
Yep.
I don't know, a couple months ago or so, we were saying.
Yep.
And when I worked at York University, we had a section where the student union had a section where if you were stressed out, or if you had a form of anxiety or whatever was troubling you, you could go to that place. And I understand that there's some programs now that are being offered in the universities as well as the colleges that you can go and you can speak with I guess you can call it like a life coach, whatever, or there's students or there's student bodies that can refer you and they can help you focus on your education, and they can also counsel you on your mental health issues. So they're not combined together, so you're not totally stressed out.
I think people have to bring it to the forefront, like talk about it with others, talk about it with your staff members, access to counseling probably, and even with your friends. See, it's not an issue that people like to talk about, some people with others, so just I think more awareness.
Well, I read an article, I don't know, 1 month in the Italian community. I forget the name of the gentleman, and his son committed suicide. And he was an excellent athlete. He was a very good student. He was helping everybody else. And on the surface, he presented to the world family that everything was okay. And he committed suicide. And father, I don't know his name, but he started something here in Canada from that suicide, because he doesn't want anybody else to go through that, any other student, any other family. In relation to the question that we were talking about, he talked about the different in the Italian culture, for example, the shame. You didn't talk about mental illness in the family. It's self-reliant, okay? Self-reliant. That generation, the younger people, are more open to discussing mental health issues. So in regard to the school itself, I think that we have to have, even in the curriculum, we have a lot of focus on getting our bodies into shape. But we have to also have focus on our mental health shape.
Just have more conversations about it.
Can I just add one thing? Nan said it towards the end of her when she spoke. That, but I think that dealing with mental health, I think it needs to be focused, and it needs to be start being talked to and learned in the early ages of school. Like when you start I don't know if you can say kindergarten, but maybe grade 1, and there should be a portion of the class, maybe 30 minutes or so, where it's actually discussed, because it's important for everybody, because some students, they go home and they have to deal with a mother or a father that's depressed, and sometimes they don't go to work. Sometimes they're curled up, or they're sleeping on the couch or in the room. They don't do anything, and
You mean the parent?
the parent, yes, and it's not a good thing if the child wants to bring home a friend to the house to socialize.
I agree with everyone that, like, both the Toronto District School Board and the entire educational board of any school, I'm talking about like the world, mental health awareness has to be top priority, because it can either cost a life, it could cost many different things, and we all just want to live on Earth peacefully despite the chaos that is happening. We just want to see another tomorrow.
I would like to thank the listeners, especially our guests, for taking the time to speak with us about this issue today.
Fedor?
A special mention to the Disability Channel for providing this amazing opportunity for us to speak about these topics which impact our community. The Disability Channel is an innovative media company that provides employment opportunities within the area of digital media. Joel and I are participants of the Digital Ventures program, which provides digital skills, upgrade courses. All of us are participants of the Digital Ventures program, which provides digital skills, upgrade courses, and on-the-job paid learning experience for people with diverse abilities. To learn more, visit www.thedisabilitychannel.ca and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Follow on Facebook and Twitter. The Disability Channel, showcasing abilities.